Okay, good morning. I'm going to go over with you today the poetry paper, paper number 2, the paper that you will write after you've analyzed some poems, okay? So I printed off the description here and some of the poems to kind of help you understand what I'm looking for. Oops. So this is the description from Blackboard, and it says, for the second essay, you must choose one of the Read Woke documents of poetry attached here. Read Woke, this is just, this deals with topics of the minority groups. All right, this is the idea that Read Woke is the idea that we read stuff that deals with different groups of people or experiences, so that way we gain a better understanding and create more empathy towards each other. You may choose from the female perspective, which is essentially the feminist packet. But I don't want to call it feminist because sometimes feminism means is empowering, and that's different than women's issues. So call it the female perspective. Queer poetry, which is poetry about that's written from the perspective of homosexuals and lesbians, or the racism packet. You'll pick 3 of the songs/poems from the packet to analyze. Each packet has at least 5 poems to pick from. Each individual poem will be discussed in its own paragraph. So if there's 3 poems that you pick, then each one will be one, and each one is in its own paragraphs. There's at least 3 body paragraphs. And each paragraph on a poem needs to have one specific focus. You need to pick one poem or song to discuss its theme. Oh, that's kind of small. Theme. You need to pick a different poem or song to discuss symbolism. And your final paragraph needs to discuss the style of a third poem, which I'm going to go over with you and give you an example in a moment. Your introduction and conclusion should focus on the overall topic of the poems and how they raise awareness to diverse groups. This essay is analytical. It is not a summary. Don't retell the story or the poem. Okay, I've read all of these, so I've read all the poems, so I know what they're about. You need to actually discuss them. Your essay needs to have an introduction, and it needs to have 3 body paragraphs, conclusion, thesis statement in your introduction, a works cited page, because you are going to have to use research and 3 outside resources. So you're going to need to have works cited page, okay, for those 3 pieces of information or sources. Your paper must be double-spaced, 3 full pages. 3 full pages this time. 3 full pages. About 900 words. Your paper must be double-spaced. I just want to re-emphasize this. 3 full pages. About does not mean that, like, if you hit 2.5 pages and you hit 900 words, you're still going to lose points because the 2.5 is not 3 words. I mean, it's not 3 pages. It's better to go over than to be under. All right. So look, you must cite your main source, which is the packet that I gave you. You'll cite it with just the author name. Okay. Now you'll need to incorporate 3 secondary sources. I already discussed this in a PowerPoint that I posted a couple weeks ago, but look, there's 2 types of sources you can find. You can find supportive research, which is research that directly supports your analysis because the author shares your perspective. The author of the research. So if you are writing an analysis of the theme from the poem, I think there's a poem called Letter, something like Letter for English B. Okay. If you find, let's say this is the name of the poem that you are writing about, and you actually find research that discusses the theme for this poem, then that would be supportive research, okay? And so you are more like reading this research and then just reporting, essentially summarizing what this writer says the theme is for this poem. Topical research, though, is research that indirectly supports your analysis by applying the research to your topic, okay? So the poem Letter for English B discusses the topic or theme, okay, that white people, whites and blacks, are uniquely different from each other, okay, for a lot of obvious reasons, but we cannot forget that we do share a connection as humans. So although we are different, we cannot ignore the fact that we are together. So this is the theme for this poem, okay? So if I could find topical research, okay, that deals with racism, the other, which is a term used for people who are not who are outside of the ruling class. I can find research that deals with integration, and then I would apply information on these topics to my analysis. So the research is not actually on this poem. It's actually on one of these topics, and then I apply that information to my analysis. Those are two different ways that you can do research for this. All right, so look, you are picking one packet to discuss 3 poems from. So you are choosing the female perspective, then all 3 poems that you're going to write about are from this packet. If you choose the racism packet, all 3 poems that you're going to be writing about come from the racism packet. If you choose the queer poetry packet, all 3 poems come from this packet, all right? Now, just as your instructor, I chose a poem from each packet to analyze quickly for you, all right? I did not want to analyze 3 poems from the same packet for you because then you all could use those 3, all right? And I did the work for you. So I chose 1 from each packet, okay? You won't be choosing 1 poem from each packet. You'll be choosing 3 from 1 packet, okay? I really hope that does not confuse you. Okay, so since you're picking 1 packet. From that packet, you are picking 3 poems from the packet, okay? And you need 1 poem to discuss. symbolism. You need one poem to discuss theme. And you need one poem to discuss style. Okay? So I'm going to show you how to kind of analyze a poem based upon the topic you're discussing. So I chose The Sick Rose by William Blake to discuss symbolism. This came from the female perspective packet. All right? Here we go. The Sick Rose by William Blake. O rose, thou art sick, the invisible worm that flies in the night in the howling storm has found out thy bed of crimson joy, and his dark secret love does thy life destroy. Okay. All right. So this poem is, if we're looking at it from the female perspective, all right, Rose symbolizes women, okay, women in general. And the worm that flies in the night in the howling storm has found out thy bed. Okay, the worm here, all right, the invisible worm, this to me represents deceitful men. Okay, deceitful men, who do not really reveal who they are. All right. I just read this book called Missoula, which is a nonfiction book, and it's about acquaintance rape. And acquaintance rape is when women are raped by people that they know. Maybe a guy who was their friend, or a guy who's trying to date her, or a boyfriend, and they either date rape these women, they rape the women when they're passed out, or they start making out and the guy just doesn't stop. Okay, and so we could say that like these deceitful men, these men who seem nice, friendly, all right, caring, okay, but really they are just interested in sex or control. These are the men who seem nice, loving, caring, but then really they just want to manipulate a woman. They want to control her. They want to dominate her. And so these guys who end up becoming very controlling. Or it's the guys who act sweet, act nice, and then once a woman finally has sex with him, he leaves her, he dumps her, he moves on, all right? The whole, oh, I love you, baby, and then hit it, quit it, bye. All right, so the invisible worm is deceitful men. They seem nice, but it's invisible. Their worminess is invisible, okay? He's found out thy bed of crimson joy, and his dark secret love does thy life destroy, okay? So, once again, this can either be, it can be, he is kind, until he sleeps with our symbolic rose. Then he leaves her. Okay? And she's sad, she's heartbroken. Or it could be once again, he is kind, but then becomes very controlling. All right? So the symbolism here is the rose and the worm, all right? And the bed could literally be a bed, which would equal sex, or it could mean your heart, okay, which is what leads to being manipulated. Okay, so this poem uses symbolism. The rose represents women. The invisible worm represents deceitful men. The bed of crimson joy is either a woman's heart, or it's literally like her bed, so it represents sex. And then he destroys her life by sleeping with her and leaving her, which leaves her in emotional turmoil, or leaves her pregnant, or with an STD and he's gone. Or he destroys her life by controlling her, by becoming extremely manipulative and keeping her kind of locked into this relationship. So like for research for this, all right, you can find supportive research that actually, this is where an author discusses this poem and what it symbolizes. Or you can do topical research, where you research acquaintance rape, which I'm going to completely misspell acquaintance because I am a terrible speller. I'm a product of bad ears and spell check. All right, so you can do acquaintance rape for your topical research. You could do research on how men capture women in manipulative relationships. All right, you can do research on deceit, on ways to fool women, these kind of things, and use that topical research to explain the invisible worm. Okay, so you need to do some sort of research that you will use just very briefly, 2 sentences, to relate to explaining the symbolism of a poem. Okay, so there's that. Now we're going to look at the poem House in the World, which this comes from the Racism packet. Once again, you do not choose one poem from each packet. Okay, I'm just doing that to show you variety, all right? But you will pick one packet and then 3 poems from that packet. All right, theme. Theme is, okay, what statement does the poem make? All right? What statement does the poem make? Now look, to really understand theme, you're still going to do some symbolism. You can still talk about symbolism in this poem, all right, in this paragraph. But my focus will be the symbolism is used to support the theme. So House in the world. I'm looking for a house in the world where the white shadows will not fall. There is no such house. Dark brothers, no such house at all. All right, so I can't talk about the theme without understanding the symbolism of this poem. A house is a safe place where the white shadows will not fall. White shadows, this means white power. Okay? Caucasians, white people. White people's control. I'm looking for a house in the world where the white shadows will not fall. White power. There is no such house. Dark brothers. Dark brothers, meaning black people. Okay? Black people. I've adopted the term black people over African Americans because a lot of people in the black community feel that African Americans sets them apart from, regular Americans because it emphasizes that they're part African. So black people, this phrase is as equivalent to white people, and so that it takes away this idea that like they also belong someplace else, like Africa. No, they don't belong in Africa or half African. They are Americans who are black, just like white people are Americans who are white. I don't always refer to myself as an Irish American white person. Okay. So dark brothers is black people. No such house at all. So the symbolism, yes, house is a safe place. White shadows is white power. White people's control. Dark brothers symbolizes black people. Okay. But the most important thing about this poem is theme, the message. All right, the statement. Statement. Okay. There is no place in America. Okay. There's no place in America that's truly safe for black people. That's one way that you can interpret the theme. Another way is racism is everywhere. Or maybe it's not racism, okay? Maybe we can just say white influence is everywhere. There's many different ways that you can state this theme, but it is essentially this idea that there is no way of escaping white people's power or their control. Okay. Now I'm thinking about this, about research, topical research. Okay. Topical research. There was I read that there was this article on NPR, National Public Radio. Okay, and they do news and stuff. Article about a black couple, actually an African couple, a black couple from Africa, that moved to America to escape violence and tribal war, all right, with other groups, okay? To escape conflict. So they moved to, I think it's South Dakota, because to them this is like extremely far away. This is like very far away from Africa, all right? But after only 2 weeks being there in South Dakota. House was vandalized by the KKK, all right? And so they were very upset by this. Of course, they came to America with the idea of being able to have some peace, not fear for their lives, all that kind of stuff. And they moved to a place that they thought was going to be safe. But white supremacists were there. And so, even though this is about this couple, this story right here relates much to this theme of house in the world. So you could write a paragraph. Your paragraph could be discussing the theme of the poem and how this still stands true in real life, because here's an example of this, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Or you could relate to, let's say in high school you read A Raisin in the Sun, which is all about this. Black people trying to move out of what one would term as the ghetto, and they go to they buy a house in a nice neighborhood that's crime-free. But then the community, which is mostly all white, is trying to convince them not to move in, not to go to this safe place, all right? And the white shadows is falling down over the family. I think Oprah made a movie of it with P. Diddy also, House Raisin in the Sun, which is also, the title comes from a Langston Hughes poem. All right, so this would be discussed in all one paragraph, and this one deals with theme. This poem, even though you will discuss some symbolism, the focus of the paragraph is on theme. And theme changes, It could be there is no place in America that's truly safe for black people, or it could be just that racism is everywhere, or that white influence is everywhere, things like this. Okay, and the last one we'll discuss is style. Style, this comes from queer poetry. And just for the record, it's called queer poetry because that's the genre. There is a major that's called queer studies, okay? It's a term that they use to refer to the LGBTQ community. All right, Alone, this is a poem by Edgar Allan Poe. You might recognize him, all right? And that we can interpret as from the perspective of somebody who is youthful, a young person realizing that they are different from other people, and what makes them different is the possibility that they are gay. Here we go. From childhood's hour, I have not been as others were. I have not seen as others saw. I could not bring my passions from a common spring. From the same source, I have not taken my sorrow. I could not awaken my heart to joy at the same tone. And all I loved alone, then in my childhood, in the dawn of a most stormy life, was drawn from every depth of good and ill and mystery, the mystery which binds me still. From the torrent or the fountain, from the red cliff of the mountain, from the sun that round me rolled in its autumn tint of gold, from the lightning in the sky as it passed me flying by, from the thunder and the storm, and the cloud that took the form when the rest of heaven was blue, of a demon in my view. Okay. So, from my childhood's hour, I've not been as others were. Okay. Everything that they loved was different from what other people did. Okay. And so we can interpret this. All right, we can interpret this as in the speaker. Poems are not always by the authors. All right, author versus speaker. The speaker could always be just somebody else. All right, so we got to understand that. The speaker here, okay, the speaker is gay. But they're having a very hard time understanding their sexuality, confused by it. Okay, when you feel that like you that you have a very natural response to something that's very real for you, but that you feel that you're the only one that has that feeling, then it can make you feel very, very much on the outside, like questions of, am I normal? Or if you realize why am I different? Okay. And so style refers to how the poem is written. Okay? So, a couple things. One, we have all these dashes. We have no periods. All dashes. Dash, 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 dash. Okay? So, style. We have dashes. And, okay, this is very much like the Hemingway stories that we read. Okay? Dashes, and we have gay is never mentioned. Okay? Or homosexuality is never mentioned. These things are never mentioned. And it could be for the time period or on purpose. All right? So what we can say is that, look, the style of this poem using all these dashes, what does that style represent? Okay, style can still be symbolic. All right? So the symbolism of the dashes leave everything as an implied question. Okay? A dash really equals what we do today in ellipses. It trails off. It's uncertain. A period is precise. It makes a statement. Here, it's all questioning. These are all different clues trying to lead to the answer. And it's possibly the speaker has an answer that he or she doesn't want to say. Sometimes it's hard to admit these things. So we could say that the dash is equals almost a denial. All right? It's hard to come to grasp with some of these big realizations about oneself. And the dash emphasizes that. Okay? The dashes emphasize that. And that it makes this person feel alone. Look, alone. And oftentimes, homosexuals feel alone in their community. Okay? And that's, let's see. And that's another style right here. Look, the style is the title. It says alone as the title, but it never says alone. No. Oh no, I loved alone. Okay, there it is. Okay, I loved alone. There it is. So it does say alone. All right. Okay, so like your topical research, okay, can be on the loneliness of young homosexuals. How that makes them feel. How that makes them feel to feel isolated. All right? And then you would relate the research to the poem. Okay. So if I was going to write a essay about the style of this poem, I would discuss the usage of dashes and how the dashes are almost like the speaker knows the answers to why he or she's alone, but is in denial or doesn't want to say it out loud. All right. And that because it's a hard thing to admit, especially when a society makes people feel like their homosexuality is a demon. All right. I mean, that's the religious Christian right there. All right. And so it's but at the same time though, it leaves open because we don't want to make finite statements. So the dashes we can interpret are much like the way that we today use ellipses where it is left uncertain. Okay, and that uncertainty is the person trying to figure themselves out. Okay, figure themselves out, or also they don't want to admit something because then it becomes real, it becomes true. Okay. All right, so that would be style, the way the poem is written. Also, it could be I could have discussed rhyme scheme, the shortness. I could have discussed this as being very short and precise because because it's shorter, it's more stinging, it resonates better. All right, and it gets to the point. It punches you in the face much more than if it was longer. All right. So style goes with a variety of things. Okay, so I gave you an example of style, gave you an example of theme, gave you an example of symbolism. All right, I would, so if I were you, I would put my poems out, I would annotate them, and then then you would turn essentially your notes and your analysis into a paragraph. And look, you can have 2 paragraphs for every poem. You don't have to have 1 poem per paragraph. You can have 2 paragraphs per poem. Now, you have to discuss all 3 poems. So if you wrote 2 paragraphs per poem, okay, that's fine. Your paper would just be longer. All right. I'm grading you on making sure that you write long enough and that you are discussing 3 of these. All right. Okay, I hope this helps. If you have any questions, please email me. All right, I'll see y'all later.